We went up there and there it is. That's the full body. And it flat didn't work. If you angled the front end to where you didn't have so much downforce, it would try to fly. The front end would get so light you couldn't drive it. If you put it back down where it wanted to be aerodynamic wise, it put so much downforce on it that about 3/4 of the way down the tires just blew off. Went in the smoke, and it just wouldn't.
The front tires?
No, rear tires.
Rear tires.
Yeah, when we hopped it up, because the first time we ran it with the nose down, Pete says it's lazy. It goes out, accelerates good, middle of the course, but then it's straining the rest of the way. So we livened it up. And the second run, it got down there, and the tires were overcome with power. And now we're not qualified, and it's Friday afternoon, and Woody decides the fatal decision: take that sucker off and throw it away.
I mean, this was the March meet in '65, and
Yeah.
there were over 100.
Oh man, there was some kind of number of cars there. Yeah, I think there were 2 64-car shows that year, so there was plenty of cars, and there were usually 2 and 3 cars running at a time at the starting line to get everybody to get runs in. That's how bad it was, or how good, depending on whether you're a spectator or not. Anyway, we took the body off and said, let's qualify this thing and race, and we'll worry about the body later. So that's what we did. And the first run it made without the body, because all those cars were running awful fast, the track got oiled. And when it did, Pete turned it over about 100 feet out and put it on its roof. And that scrapped that program right there. And
That's Hustler 6.
that's Hustler 6, laying on its side.
And this was interesting because another Woody car also wrecked.
The next day, it was the other factory car, Paul Sutherland, who did the same thing. Nando Hassi did the same thing. And the Black Knight, John Edmonds, driving the Tony Waters car, almost turned it over. All were Woody cars. Edmonds got it up like this with the front wheel still on the ground and saved it. Otherwise, he'd have done the same thing because the car reacted exactly the same. It was headed in this direction. And that's what Pete crashed like that, Paul crashed like that, and then Tony Waters did the same thing behind him, but Edmund was able to catch it.
So do you think that reflected at all on
Oil on the track.
the Woody cars at
No.
all?
Well, it affected his reputation, and it affected him personally. He was really upset. And he didn't get back involved in a car that he wanted to run himself until he and Pat Foster built that rear engine car with Leland Kolb's motor. That was much later. And they turned that one over too. So Woody's factory car thing was just a disaster. It was one of those steering problems that Garlitz encountered when he built his rear engine car, was the steering was too fast. And Foster said everything was going fine. I made a little correction, and he, I think Swingle was the one that invented the saying about what happened, but then that's X-rated.
X-rated.
Anyway, after the car crashed, Woody went home and left me with the truck and the trailer and what was left of the car, and he had thrown the body over the fence. So John Baddow said, I'll take the body. I'll take care of it. I got room in the trailer. I said, fine with me. So I stayed till the next day, and when Sutherland turned over, I figured, I better leave. because I'm going to have to tell Woody that this car crashed too. And I want to be about 15 feet from him when I tell him, because he has a huge temper. So they took the motor out, and Mooneyham had split a cylinder wall. So they put Cannon's 392 in the Jungle 4 car and ran it for a couple of rounds. And this was a Zuchel motor, so it had plenty of power. I think it was a 454, a pretty serious motor. And they continued to race. Cannon stayed through the event. I told him I was leaving. I left on. Damn it. Anyway, the whole incident at Bakersfield that year was very disheartening for practically everybody that was connected with Woody in any way. And he recovered. He started making cars again, and I went on to go to work for Jaeger Plymouth. So I was essentially out of his hair at that point, and I'm sure that's how he felt, because I caused a lot of hate and discontent around the place. You know, one time he threw a starter or a generator, some big heavy piece of iron, right over my head and hit the wall and dropped down. And it was because he was aggravated with the telephone, and he picked up and threw the thing that was nearest to him. That was how volatile he was. And I looked at Pete, I looked at Paul, and I turned around and I walked out the door, and they walked out with me. And so I'm sure he blamed me for those guys leaving, because now he doesn't have anybody to work on the cars. But we all went back the next day. But he was really volatile, man. The phone would make him crazy, and I just don't answer it. You know, it's pretty simple. Don't get so upset at it. So here we go. Fast forward to finding the dragster by Pete Eastwood, who has chased down any number of cars, including the Old Master, and now he's working on the Danny Ungaius Honda Wilmington car and a couple of Roy cars that he has found. He's really doing a good job of making them exactly the way they were. I had intended to make this car inexpensive and close to accurate and have a good time with it. And I produced it with the shorty body on it that Doug Cruzy and I. Cruzy's been teaching me how to bend aluminum for 50 years. And I still haven't learned, but I'm working at it. And that's what the car looked like when it was all done and ready to cackle. And it's the, since it was the Hustler 6, that's the way I ran it for a while at the various reunions. I think 3 years I did it with the shorty body. And then I'm sitting around here one day, and I get out some cardboard and some plywood. I had the chassis. The whole car was sitting up on jacks because I had taken it apart to just go through it. And I started kind of contemplating what it would look like if I put the nose on it. So then I talked to Doug. I said, "Do you think we could put a full body on this car?" Doug Cruzy. And he said, "Sure." So I made this mock-up of the nose, and I took it to, I put it in the back of the truck, and I took it to Steve Davis. And I said, "Okay, look this thing over. Here's what I want to do. And I want to make this nose the same essential front shape as the Hustler 1. And just carry it back plain. And then paint the car a combination of the Hustler 1 and Hustler 5 in reverse." And if you remember from the Hustler 5 picture, which is here, it was Sierra Gold back here and a cream stripe. So what I did was when I drew up the body as to the way I wanted it, I used the shape of the tail and the paint scheme with the colors reversed, and then the nose of the Hustler with the same paint scheme as Art had it, and just put, instead of Chrisman Brothers and Cannon on it, which it wasn't, I put Hustler 6 on it. And when the body was done, it looked like that. That was in sheet metal. I had the folks at Marcel in Orange County, I had him rough the nose out based on the buck that I had built. And then I took it down to Doug, and we started hammering on it and turned it into the body that I envisioned it to be, which is that with the fire coming out. And this is with yours truly sitting in the car having just done a push start up at Bakersfield. And I love it. It's more fun than I've ever had with my pants on. So that's kind of the story of my life. There's this desire to participate, and I'm not looking for anything other than to be allowed to participate. It's been an interesting ride. The sidebar to this car was I went to New Orleans for a high school reunion, and Glenn Cupid was there, and I showed up in my 34.3 window that I had at the time. And we re-hooked up at that point after 25 years of not seeing one another.
And what year was this?
40th, 94.
94.
No, 84. Yeah, 84.
84.
84. It was prior to any reunions or anything. I don't remember exactly. I think it was, I graduated in 54, and it was either my 40th or his 40th would have been 56, because he's 2 years behind me. So it was probably 86.
No, 40, 50.
30th.
30th. Now we're talking.
I'm not very good at math, as you can plainly see. Anyway, we hooked up at that event, having not seen each other for a number of years.
You and Glenn?
Glenn, yeah. And we reminisced about it and what have you. And I said, you guys have got to come out and come to California. And he was, he agreed, but he never came out right away. And then I got this car, and I convinced him that he must come out and be part of the pit crew. Well, he did.
On Hustler 6.
Yes, in the shorty body trim.
The first.
Yeah. And he had run a dragster in '65 with Terry Cunningham with a Chevy, and they ran pretty good in Louisiana. They did their share of winning, and I think a lot of it was by accident, but that's another story.